Well, folks, MAGA civil war just got even worse for Donald Trump because yet another conservative influencer has just come out and condemned his idea of going to war with Iran. Theo, who is this huge podcaster, comedian, he's one of the biggest reasons as to why young men swung toward Donald Trump in the 2024 election. He's very pro MAGA. He just came out on his podcast and said, no, I don't want any war with Iran, and kind of hinted at Donald Trump backtracking on his main campaign promise. And let me tell you, like, Theo is no liberal. And I'm sorry to use a Fox News article. They're the ones who interviewed him, so they have the exclusive, so I have to. But Theo attended Donald Trump's, quote, inspiring inauguration and declared it's, quote, time to put America first. These are his words. Popular podcast host, this was when the inauguration was happening, and comedian Theo described the inauguration of Donald Trump as inspiring, saying he felt lucky to be there. Who attended exclusive viewing of Trump's swearing-in ceremony in the Capitol building alongside other prominent influencers and business leaders, told Fox Digital that being at the ceremony made him realize how much he appreciates being in a free country, which is ironic because he supported Donald Trump, who has done anything but preserve freedom. As a matter of fact, he's done the opposite. He said, I felt lucky to see the inauguration. It's inspiring, and it made me feel blessed that God let me live this time around in a country that has voting rights. Well, not for long, if Donald Trump plans go through. But regardless, he went on his podcast and said, yeah, I'm not in favor of this possible plan, and that Netanyahu is kind of bullying Donald Trump, signaling that Trump is weak. So let's take a look at this clip, and we'll talk about it in just a second.
Trying to get us into a war with Iran or not, America, if Israel is trying to. I don't trust the Israel leader at all. I don't believe anything that guy says. And I don't think that our soldiers should have to go and defend stuff that they start. I'm not a soldier, so I'm obviously speaking out of turn. I'm not even brave enough to serve, so there's that element. But that is kind of how I feel, I guess. And so it's like, yeah, when do I speak? When do I say that? You know? Because it feels like they're trying to push Trump to go do that. And it's like, who makes that choice? Does he make that choice? And then what do we get? What's the win for us? We're just involved in some other thing.
What's interesting here is that Theo either intentionally or unintentionally, I can't really tell, is pushing back on one of Donald Trump's major campaign sells. He framed himself as like, I'm this big, strong leader who never gets pushed around by any other world leader. I make all the decisions. Everybody's scared of me. And Theo here is saying, well, are they going to push Donald Trump to make the decision? Who makes that decision? He's kind of saying that, well, Trump is getting bullied, pushed around by Netanyahu, which is absolutely true. Trump just does whatever he says. Remember that clip of him like pushing the chair in for Netanyahu when he was at the White House? So Theo is like unintentionally presumes acknowledging one of the biggest flaws of Donald Trump, that he's managed to convince people is actually a pro, that he is very weak. He does get pushed around by leaders. He is not this big, strong guy with all this bravado. He's actually a very small man on the inside who's very easy to push around.
While we have suffering here at home. So maybe something like that is like, yeah, should I even speak up? Because I'm not in service. Servicemen and women may be like, we'll do it, and that's their commitment and their job. But yeah, I don't know. That guy really scares me. And I don't know why we support them. I don't understand that. I wish they would really give us a better explanation. Especially after the massacres in Gaza. I don't understand. I do not understand that. And some people say, well, you don't know enough about it. It may not. But it's like, can I still speak about it? Can I speak about how I feel about it?
Look, I'm going to pause the clip right there. As a young man myself, I'm obviously a huge Democrat. I don't support any Republican, but I do appreciate how humble Theo Vaughn is when talking about this topic. Like, he recognizes that, things are complex and he might not understand everything. And, he's not necessarily in the best position to be speaking about these things. So I do appreciate that. And I don't think that we as Democrats should hate people like Theo Vaughn. I think we can win people like Theo Vaughn back and remind people that, hey, the Democratic Party actually does work for people. But it's just interesting to see somebody who was honored to attend Donald Trump's inauguration, said it was a great thing to be there, inspiring to be there, is now saying, well, Trump is kind of getting pushed into this. He's kind of be bullied on the world stage. And he's questioning whether Donald Trump is making the right decision here. And I think him questioning that publicly, live, will do a tremendous amount for Democrats in the future as we continue to push back on Donald Trump. And what's interesting about this clip is that he's not the only one in recent weeks, not the only famous comedian to push back on Donald Trump and kind of regret his support a little bit. We just saw recently comedian Dave Smith, who enthusiastically endorsed Donald Trump, slammed him recently in a new podcast episode as impotent. He said, I supported him last year. I apologize for doing so. Let's take a look at that clip really quickly.
Donald Trump telling him to come back to the negotiating table now is a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, what a impotent leader to be sitting there talking about coming back to the negotiating table. It's like sitting after Pearl Harbor and telling FDR, now's the time to go negotiate with the Japanese.
Right.
Negotiations are over now. The time for negotiations was before this. And so, yeah, Donald Trump looks, and man, I supported him this last year. I apologize for doing so. It was a bad calculation. At the time, it seemed like the right one. But he should be impeached and removed for this one. Wow. And not on some not on some ridiculous Nancy Pelosi. Of course, the Congress will never do it because they're all a bunch of, corrupt hacks.
This is the one thing they support. This is
Donald Trump should be impeached and removed for this. All of his supporters should turn on him. It's the absolute betrayal of everything that he ran and campaigned on and everything that he stood for. And I will say, despite the fact that, Donald Trump supporters have been labeled like a cult following, and that certainly is true for a percentage of his supporters, he is going to lose his coalition over this. I don't just speak for myself when I say there are a lot of us who simply will not go along with this. So it's just a devastating mistake. By the way, on top of that, he's also going to lose the deportation fight because of this.
Wow. Wow. Impeached and removed, Dave Smith said. He has gone that far. This is somebody who, again, I want to stress, huge Trump supporter. Before the election, he was slamming Kamala Harris left, right, and center. Now he's saying that he should be impeached and removed from office. I just wish that some of these folks realized this before the election and didn't make the mistake. But better late than never, the saying goes, right? I suppose. But regardless, it's just fascinating to see all these different MAGA conservatives who were once ardent Trump supporters now calling him weak, now calling for even his removal from office, his impeachment. I mean, it is stunning. And I think that Donald Trump's, we talk about this often, but I really think that Donald Trump's base right now, especially the base he's managed to establish online, which has been very difficult for Democrats to break through, is fracturing right now, right before our very eyes. And as somebody who makes videos online, I'm enjoying every second of it. And I hope you are too. So anyway, I just had to show you this clip. I'll leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to subscribe down below. It goes an incredibly long way. Make sure to drop a like on the video and comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on this story. And as I always say, I greatly appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.